I can hear you.
Great. Everybody else? Oh, look at the little hamster. It's so cute. Everybody's good? Can hear me? Okay, I'm going to start because it's 5 o'clock. Yes, I'm getting some yeses in the chat, so that's great. So hello, welcome. My name is Mrs. Nicole. You can say Mrs. Nicole Angelucci, Mrs. Nicole, whatever's easier for you. Today, we're going to be covering a lesson from Wordly Wise 7. It's the first lesson from that book. And I just kind of picked and chose a few pieces that we're going to go through. So I just want to go through a few things before we get started into the actual content. I would like to go over some classroom rules, which I think most of us should know by now, having been online because of COVID. So if you could please keep your video on if you're comfortable with that, I would really appreciate it, because it's easier for me to see you and to see if you're understanding, if you're following along, and if I need to slow down, speed up, whatever it might be. If you're uncomfortable with that, it's totally fine. Just I would obviously prefer it. Please keep yourself muted, as we all have done so far. So thank you very much. Unless I ask you to unmute yourself for a reading purpose or answering a question. This just ensures that there's no background noise, so everybody can hear what I'm saying. Please hold your questions until the end of class. So I understand some questions might come up as we are going through the lesson, and that's totally normal. There's no stupid questions. Everything is game. Please just maybe have a pen and paper with you, which is going to be on my next slide, to write down any questions you may have. And then if you're worried about forgetting them, and then you can ask at the end of class, or you can type them into the chat as soon as you have the question and send it right away. And then I will take a look at it at the appropriate time and answer the questions. Please, of course, be respectful towards each other and towards the teacher. So no swearing, no profanity, no racist comments, no discrimination. Let's all be friends and be nice. Please have your name in English, if you can, on your Zoom user account so that I can address you if need be by name. And as I said, please have a paper or a notebook and a pencil or pen. Feel free to take notes throughout the class, so you can take notes on anything that you feel you need to take notes on for further reference in the future. Or there will also be some times when I ask you, since we're a large number of students, I will ask you to write down answers for things and self-evaluate. So I will give you a couple of minutes to answer the questions, and then I will give you the answers, and you can check off yourself what the answers are. So any questions about classroom rules, please put them in the chat and I will address them. If not, we are going to start. These are the vocabulary words that we will be covering today. So the vocabulary words include abate. This is how you pronounce them, abate, acknowledge, agent, authority, devastate, epidemic, estimate or estimate, depending on how it's used, evict, impartial, industrious, infuriate, irrelevant, precise, sham, and trek. So I would like for you to think about these words. How many of these words have you heard before, if any? So take a look at them. If you've heard of any of these words, you can just kind of, give them a little tick or be like, yes, I've heard of this word before. And do you know what they mean if you have heard of these words before? Do you know how to use them in a sentence? Do you know what the definition is? And if you don't know what they mean, that's totally fine. We're going to cover all of them today. But if you don't know what they mean, how can we figure out what they mean? Of course, we can look in a dictionary, but there are other ways to figure out what a word means. And one way which we're going to do that today is through inferring meaning through context. So look at the word in a sentence or in a couple of sentences. What do you think it means? So for example, the performance was so thrilling that the audience's applause was too loud for the performers' voices to be heard. Thus, the performers had to wait until the applause abated before speaking. So what could that mean? Can anybody type in the chat what they think that means? Or if you think you know, you can unmute yourself and give me an answer. Abate. They had to
kind of like disappearing or like getting smaller. The sound is kind of getting
Exactly. Yes, Leon, thank you. Exactly. So it's like it's getting smaller or decreasing. How about the second one? In order to get a job that pays well and to ensure that the model won't be taken advantage of, models should have a good agent. Agent. Yes, Jasmine?
I think in this case, agent means to like have a person who like the business, a very good business person.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, a business person, but does that business person work for themselves or for the model?
It works for the model.
Exactly. So that person as an agent is kind of a representative for the model, person who's more experienced in that area and can represent another person. Okay, the third one, we should all know this one because we're all stuck in it. Right now, the COVID-19 virus has become a dangerous epidemic. What's an epidemic?
I think it's probably some sort of germ or some sort of bacteria.
Definitely it's caused by a germ or bacteria. Jasmine?
So you gave us a hint about like how we're in epidemic. Is that like what's happening right now?
Exactly. So as Edward said in the chat, it is an outbreak worldwide of a virus, usually caused by some kind of germ or bacteria. So it's very rapid spreading. James and Julie did not pay the rent for their apartment for 5 months. As a result, the landlord evicted them. Let's see who we've got. We've got Xiang.
Yeah, evict, it means to like force someone to get out for out because they didn't pay the rent or something.
Exactly, you're forcing somebody out, and usually you're forcing them out through legal action.
Yeah, from an apartment or something.
Exactly, thank you very much. And the last one on our list here, not being able to go out shopping and see friends for over a year infuriates many people. Infuriates. Making people angry. Yes, Edward, thank you. Making people angry. So infuriate means to make you extremely upset or angry. Many words have more than one meaning, and some of them can be used in different parts of speech. So for example, my sales agent gave me an estimate. We're using the word estimate as a noun here. Gave me an estimate on my house. Or I estimate it will cost approximately so much money for the repairs, whatever amount you want to put in there. But essentially, the word estimate can be used both as a noun, an estimate, or as a verb, to estimate. And a lot of words are like that in the English language. So we're going to go through a passage. The passage is called The Trail of Tears. And we're going to see all of these vocabulary words pop up in this passage. So as we're reading, if you can please try to infer meaning through context for the words, that would be fantastic. And if there are still words that you can't figure out what they mean, there's no problem at all. We are still going to go through them. And of course, it's going to take some time to fully understand what these words mean. But before we start, the Trail of Tears, based on that title and based on the images, what do you think this text will be about? Jiang?
Before I heard of it, the trail of, like Jasmine just said, like the native people who live in Africa or something. I don't remember well, but American people evicted them, and then they were forced to go away, like 1,000 miles away in the south or north somewhere.
Exactly, yes, for sure. So yeah, you definitely got Native Americans, eviction of some kind, being forced to travel to a different land, for sure, yes. Those are all very, very good. Chloe says, a passage about never-ending events happening, making us emotional. Very possible, yes. Jasmine did say Trail of Tears when Americans forces the First Nations to move out of their own land and go away. So I'm gonna need 4 people because there's 4 paragraphs. So can I have 4 people who want to read 1 paragraph each? Okay, Xiang, you can have the first one. Leon second. Jasmine third. And anybody for the last one?
Can I read 2 paragraphs if nobody's going?
Oh, Nicholas offered, so we'll have Nicholas for the 4th one, but next time for sure, if we have no one offering, for sure. Okay, so here's the first paragraph. So that is for Xiang.
Okay, the Trail of Tears. The original inhabitants of what is now Kentucky and
Tennessee.
Tennessee were an industrious people who lived mainly by hunting and farming. They were called Cherokees by the Europeans who first made contact with them. The Europeans had settled along the east coast in the early 1600s. 1600s. These first meetings between European traders and Cherokees were friendly, but were to have devastating consequences for Native Americans later. The Europeans brought goods for trading, it's true, but they also brought smallpox, a disease that had been unknown in North America before their arrival. This disease left their body covered with sores and was often fatal. In 1745, a smallpox epidemic struck the Cherokee people. It killed more than half the population. And that was just the beginning of the Cherokee people's woes.
Great, thank you so much, Xiang. Next reader, that just this portion, the second paragraph, so the first paragraph that's on top there on the left side.
The United States government recognized the Cherokee Nation as a separate country and acknowledged its right to sign treaties or legally binding agreements with other countries. In treaty after treaty, the Cherokees gave more and more of their land to the United States government. In return, they gained the right to evict anyone who settled illegally on the remaining land. But settlers ignored these agreements. They continued to move on to Cherokee land in great numbers. The United States government did not even pretend to be impartial in the disputes that arose as a result. The appeals of the Cherokee leaders fell on deaf ears. Their fifth of their land continued unabated. By 1828, the Cherokee Nation was 1/10 the size it had been 100 years earlier.
Great, Jasmine.
In 1835, an agent of the United States government persuaded 20 Cherokees to sign one final treaty. According to its terms, Cherokees would get $5 million for leaving the last of their land and moving almost 1,000 miles west. The Cherokee signers had no authority to ask for the entire Cherokee nation, but this fact was brushed aside as irrelevant by those in the government who had wanted the land. The Chief Justice of the United States declared the agreement a sham. His opinion infuriated President Andrew Jackson, who replied, "The Chief Justice has made his decision. Now let him enforce it."
Perfect, thank you. And Nicholas, for the last paragraph, please.
The United States government
So
recognized.
the last paragraph, sweetheart, precisely 2 years on the right-hand side.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Precisely 2 years after the signing of the agreement, on the orders of the president, 2,000 heavily armed United States soldiers arrived on Cherokee land. They drove the Cherokee families from their homes. Nearly 20,000 people were forced to trek more than 900 miles west into what is now Oklahoma. They went mostly on foot. It has been estimated that about 4,000 Native Americans died on the journey, which became known as the Trail of Tears. In a sense, though, the Cherokees had traveled an even longer and even more sorrow trail, a journey in time that began when the unsuspecting Cherokees first greeted the Europeans as friends.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everybody who read. That was fantastic. Just a couple of things. So it's Cherokee, Cherokee Nation, and Cherokees. And wow, that was fantastic. So the definitions of the vocabulary words, if you were trying to pay attention to what they were as we were going through, this is a matching exercise. So I'm going to give you all about 3 or 4 minutes to kind of take a look. You don't have to write the whole word down. You can just write 1C, 2J, whatever the answer is that you think. And then together we're going to go over and see what the answers are. If you would like to type your answers in the chat, just because I won't have a chance to make everybody answer for this one. So if you want to write your answers in the chat to share them, you can do that and just hit enter and everyone will see them. And then together we'll go through what the actual answers are, all right?
Okay.
Yes, Chloe's given us one answer, 11G, that's correct, 11G. Infuriate is to make someone extremely angry. 2E, acknowledge, to admit the existence of something, that's correct. So 2E is correct. 3N, agent, a person who acts for another person, group, or organization, correct. 7B, estimate, to guess a number carefully, correct. 5O, devastate, to destroy or ruin, correct. 10J, industrious, hardworking, correct. I think I missed one on the chat. Let me go back. 1D, abate, to decrease, that is also correct. So far, everybody's right. 6F, epidemic, the rapid spread of disease, correct. 13M, precise, exact, correct. So I'll go through them all in order. Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing in the chat. But just to go through them in order so that you're able to correct them yourself on your page to see how many you've gotten right, or if you want to write down the answers. Number 1, abate. Abate is to decrease. So 1D. Abate is to decrease. Acknowledge, number 2. Somebody had said that one in the chat, if I'm not mistaken. Number 2, acknowledge. Where is the, to admit the existence of something, which is E. Number 3 is agent. Agent, and that is a person who represents someone else. So that is, sorry, the chat keeps popping out. I'll go through the chat. Okay, 1D is correct. 2E is correct. 3N is correct. 4C, question mark, authority. Yes, an expert source of information. So 4C is correct. Looking for someone who has number 5. Number 5O, devastate, to destroy or ruin, correct. 6F, epidemic, the rapid spread of disease, correct. 7B, estimate, to guess a number carefully, correct. 8L, evict, to force out through legal action, correct. 9K, impartial, fair, correct. 10J, industrious, hardworking, correct. 11G, infuriate, to make someone extremely angry, correct. 12H, irrelevant, has nothing to do with the subject, correct. 13M, precise, exact, correct. 14L, sham, to force out through legal action. No. 14 is, oh, sorry, I, yes, that's right. Sham, I, fake. Yes, I noticed that. Correct. And trek, A, a long and slow and difficult journey, correct. So yes, Xiang's entire thing there is your answer key. That is all correct. Very good job. So we're going to check a few more things for understanding some of the vocabulary words. So now that we know what the definitions are, which of the following can be shammed? So there can be more than one answer. In fact, there usually is more than one answer. So for number 1, which can be shammed?
Honesty?
Well, can honesty be shammed? Can you fake honesty?
Oh, actually, no, you can't.
No, right? Then it would be lying.
That'd
It
be
wouldn't be
the
honesty anymore.
Yeah.
So yes, B, C, D, correct. Sleep, interest, and concern are all things that can be faked or shammed. Which of the following can be estimated? The number of days in a week, the cost of a repair, the population of a city, and the height of a hill.
I think all of them.
All of them?
All of
Can you
them?
estimate the number of days in a week? Does it change?
No.
No, but
No, it's always 7, right? It's always 7 days in a week. So that's a precise number. But yes, B, C, and D, the cost of a repair, the population of a city, and the height of a hill can all be estimated. Which of the following would be devastating for a town? A new mayor, a new shopping mall, an earthquake, or a tornado? Lucy, C, D. Yes, an earthquake and a tornado most definitely would be devastating. I mean, a new mayor could be devastating, I guess, if it's a terrible mayor, but we don't know that. So no, it would not be. It could be A, you're right, Lucy. It depends on who your mayor is. Which of the following are precise amounts? 12,450, a lot, several million, and a dozen. AD, yes, everyone answering AD, you are correct. A dozen is always 12, so that is a precise number. A lot and several million is an estimate. We don't know how many millions. So here are the answers circled for you, which we've already established. So how many did you get right? I'm sure most of you, from what I see in the chat, got all of them right, or if not, maybe one wrong and the rest of them right. So very, very good job. We're going to look at synonyms and antonyms. Does anybody know what a synonym or antonym is? Have we heard of these before? Yes, Xiang. Okay, what is a synonym and what is an antonym?
Well, like it's right there. Synonyms are the words that are like that has the same meaning or close meanings, and antonyms are like the word that has the opposite meaning, like good and bad.
Exactly. Perfect. Thank you so much. So synonyms, the way that we can remember this, because it's very easy to forget which one is which. Synonyms has the word S in it, the letter S in it. So we know that same and synonym, right? Both have the letter S. They both start with the letter S. So that's how we can remember that the words that are the same or have similar meanings are synonyms, whereas the ones that have opposite meanings are antonyms. So there are some examples on the screen for you. Synonyms can be things like big, large, huge, enormous, humongous, giant. All of these words mean the same thing or similar things. Yes, by saying big versus saying humongous, there's a little bit of a difference, right? If I say something is big, we might think it's big, but not very, very big. If I say something is humongous or enormous, you think it's very, very big. So there are small differences sometimes in the words, but they generally mean the same thing. Antonyms are complete opposites. So big versus small, high versus low, kind versus mean, all these kinds of things. So to practice the vocabulary that we have been working on, can you try to find the synonyms for each of the words listed? So which of the following is a synonym for the word authority? Is it agent, expert, practice, or novice? Chloe, yes, it's expert. A synonym for authority is expert. Which of the following is a synonym for the word acknowledge? Admit, deny, forget, or devastate?
A.
A, yes, admit. You admit the existence of. Which of the following is a synonym for the word estimate? Calculation, decision, trek, or precision?
Well, this is hard.
I see everyone's kind of jumping between A and B in the chat. A is the closer one. So B is a decision, yes, you can make a decision. And an estimate is, it can be, you're deciding, you know, how tall something is or how wide something is. But you're really calculating. You want to make a guess as to, in some unit of measurement, right? For example, how old someone is. You might estimate their age based on what they look like. How tall someone is, you might estimate based on maybe when they stand next to you, how much taller or shorter are they? And number 4, which of the following is a synonym for the word sham?
C.
C, yes, fake. So there's our circled answers. Boy, I didn't need to do that. You guys know this so well. I was not sure, but you guys really know this. Okay, so antonyms then. We're looking for opposites now. So which of the following is an antonym for the word abate?
B.
B, yes, because to abate means to decrease. So if we're looking for the opposite, we'd be increasing. Which of the following is an antonym for the word infuriate?
Soothe.
Soothe, exactly. Infuriate means to make very angry. So if we soothe someone, we kind of abate their anger. Which of the following is an antonym for the word precise?
D, inaccurate.
D, that's right, inaccurate. And which of the following is an antonym for the word industrious?
Relevant.
No, it's lazy.
Lazy.
Yeah, industrious.
Yes, industrious means hardworking. So if you're not hardworking, then you're lazy, unfortunately. But I think you're all industrious, so good job. So we're going to go through some reading comprehension now for the passage that we read. So I want you to take a minute just to look at all of the questions. This time around, I will read the passage a little slowly so that you have time to try and answer the questions. So if you want to write down the questions, you can, but the questions will be posted in the bottom right corner of the second slide as I'm reading. So you will be able to see them again at that point. But just keep these questions in mind as we're going through the passage second time. And please jot down whatever answers you think they are. You may write them down on paper, as I said, and then type them later or talk about them later. But you may also type them directly in the chat if you so wish, okay? All right, so the questions are, why did smallpox kill so many Cherokees in such a short time? How many Cherokees died of smallpox in 1745? Why might we think that the Cherokees were successful farmers? How should the US government have behaved in dealing with the disputes between the Cherokees and the white settlers? And what kind of effect did the forced removal of the Cherokees have on them? So what I would like for you to try and do is to try and use at least one of the new vocabulary words in each of your responses. So you may use more than one, but the goal is to try and use at least one vocabulary word in each response. All right. So can I get a thumbs up if we're good to start reading and go on, or do we need some time to write down the questions and read them over again? I will wait for thumbs up or a yes in the chat that we can move forward, okay? Awesome. Okay. So the Trail of Tears. The original inhabitants of what is now Kentucky and Tennessee were an industrious people who lived mainly by hunting and farming. They were called Cherokees by the Europeans who first made contact with them. The Europeans had settled along the East Coast in the early 1600s. These first meetings between European traders and Cherokees were friendly, but were to have devastating consequences for the Native Americans later. The Europeans brought goods for trading, it's true, but they also brought smallpox, a disease that had been unknown in North America before their arrival. This disease left the body covered with sores and was often fatal. In 1745, a smallpox epidemic struck the Cherokee people. It killed more than half of the population, and that was just the beginning of the Cherokee people's woes. The United States government recognized the Cherokee Nation as a separate country and acknowledged its right to sign treaties or legally binding agreements with other countries. In treaty after treaty, the Cherokees gave more and more of their land to the United States government. In return, they gained the right to evict anyone who settled illegally on the remaining land. But settlers ignored these agreements. They continued to move onto Cherokee land in great numbers. The United States government did not even pretend to be impartial in the disputes that arose as a result. The appeals of the Cherokee leaders fell on deaf ears. The theft of their land continued unabated. By 1828, the Cherokee Nation was 1/10 the size it had been 100 years earlier. In 1835, an agent of the United States government persuaded 20 Cherokees to sign one final treaty. According to its terms, the Cherokees would get $5 million for leaving the last of their land and moving almost 1,000 miles west. The Cherokee signers had no authority to act for the entire Cherokee Nation, but this fact was brushed aside as irrelevant by those in the government who wanted the land. The Chief Justice of the United States declared the agreement a sham. His opinion infuriated President Andrew Jackson, who replied, "The Chief Justice has made his decision, now let him enforce it." Precisely 2 years after the signing of the agreement, on the orders of the president, 2,000 heavily armed United States soldiers arrived on Cherokee land. They drove the Cherokee families from their homes. Nearly 20,000 people were forced to trek more than 900 miles west into what is now Oklahoma. They went mostly on foot. It has been estimated that about 4,000 Native Americans died on the journey, which became known as the Trail of Tears. In a sense, though, the Cherokees had traveled an even longer and even more sorrowful trail, a journey in time that began when the unsuspecting Cherokees first greeted the Europeans as friends. So I'm going to wait about 5 to 6 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes, just to give you a chance for those of you who are still writing down your answers. I will be opening the chat, and I'll mute myself so you don't hear like the tick, tick, tick of my keyboard. And I will respond individually to you on the chat for those of you who have answered. But I will give 5 minutes or so to the rest of you, and then we'll go through the answers all together.
Wait, can I see the question again so I can take a screenshot?
The questions are right here in the bottom right. Why did smallpox kill so many Cherokees in a short time? How many Cherokees died of smallpox in 1745? Why might we think that Cherokees were successful farmers? How should the US government have behaved in dealing with the disputes between the Cherokees and the white settlers? And what kind of effect did the forcitement of their land have on them? Yeah, it is sad. It's very sad. Okay, great. So everyone seems to be doing wonderfully with the answers. Number 4 is a little bit difficult for some people, but we'll go through all the answers together with their vocabulary words. So for number 1, as most of you said, smallpox killed so many Cherokees in a short time because it was an epidemic and it was a fatal disease. So it was an epidemic, it spread very rapidly, and it was a fatal disease. The disease, that means the disease was deadly and it would cause death in many people. How many Cherokees died of smallpox in 1745? As most of you said, it is estimated that more than half of the population died. So you guys had used the word about. You can also use the word approximately, but to use the vocabulary that we're learning today, estimated, or you could also say an estimation of about half of the population, or an estimate of about half of the population. Why might we think the Cherokees were successful farmers? You all got this one. We might think so because the passage states that they were industrious people, which means they were hardworking. Number 4, the US government, this is the one that some of you guys struggled with a little bit, and I kind of hinted at, I said, think about how they treated the Cherokee Nation versus how they treated the Americans, right? It does say in the passage they should have been more impartial. So that itself is the answer. They should have behaved impartially or as an impartial judge to settle the disputes between the Cherokees and the white settlers versus kind of favoring the Europeans. And number 5, it had a devastating effect on them is one thing that you could say. So you could use the word devastating. And as most of you said, second one is the word trek. More than 4,000 of them died as they were forced to trek more than 900 miles west. So if you want to include everything as to how it was so such a bad effect for them, that it was a devastating effect because they had to trek more than 900 miles west. I noticed some of you guys chatting about the actual content of the story, so I would just like to go over that a little bit. Is there anything you guys want to talk about, like how this passage makes you feel? What are your opinions on this passage and what happened to the Cherokee people?
Well, it makes me feel like I feel sorry for them.
Yeah, I feel sorry for them too. Xiang?
I kind of feel sad because they had to like trek so long and many of them died. I also feel
Yeah,
like the Americans are like using force and then it's not good.
for
More
sure. What do you guys think
people-
of that? Using force or like manipulation, the kind of manipulation of the Cherokee people. So you guys know what the word manipulation means?
Manipulation
what?
means to
Is it like duplication?
Not duplication. Jasmine?
manipulation is to make someone do something you want by tricking them into doing it.
Exactly. So you're not really ordering someone to do something, but you're tricking them. You're making them feel like maybe that's something that they want to do when it really isn't. So there was a manipulation here because they recognize the Cherokee Nation as an independent nation capable of signing legal documents, of being their own agent, right? But even when they were signing these legal documents, they kind of just ignored the documentation. They just did whatever was best for them, right? Like, yeah, you guys can sign treaties, but they didn't allow them really to evict anyone who settled illegally on their land. So imagine you're a Cherokee, you're part of the Cherokee Nation. What would you do in a situation like that?
Well, if I was scared, I might have just like ran up with a knife or something and killed them, I guess.
Yeah, be like, get off my land.
Yeah, maybe if we had forced to like go with the Americans, then it would be like we're just gonna protest until, you know.
Right. Would anybody like, so the thing is, how about like legally? So like think about it from a legal perspective. Your right is to evict them, but you can't.
Yeah, imagine like telling them it's law, but and then it's law. It's the law that we in America made, and then they don't listen, and then they and then Cherokees bring them to judge, but it doesn't work because the Americans doesn't listen to them.
Exactly.
They don't like do it impartially.
Exactly. They didn't behave impartially. So Chloe says, disagree and start an argument. I don't learn to debate for nothing. So yeah, you can definitely start an argument. You can take it to the court in the way that this was. So if you remember from the third paragraph, it says that the United States government persuaded the Cherokees to sign one final agreement, and then a judge, the of justice, kind of ruled it as a sham and was like, this is fake, this is, and they were really upset about it. Like, what do you mean this is fake, right? So how would you feel in that? Like, think about it from the other person's perspective. Now you're not the Cherokees, now you're the Americans who were like told that this documentation is a sham.
I would have been like, oh man.
Oh man.
Told that. So I was told that. Wait, what?
So you're told that you made an agreement with the Cherokee people to sign over the last of their land, but now this agreement has gone to court and the Chief Justice says it was fake, that this document has no standing legally. Now, what do you do?
I would be infuriated because I don't want them on the land.
Right? So you'd be so, that's perfect, a
Not
really good
belong.
use of the word infuriated.
But it doesn't belong to me anyway. So.
Right. Now imagine it's the 1800s and you need to walk. Like you have no cars. So you need to walk like 900 miles to the next land to be free.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there was bicycles, but I don't think the Cherokee people were like allowed to get it.
I would literally die.
Yeah,
Many of
Good.
them did literally die.
yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that they could, I feel like the Europeans would have used horseback riding as an alternative, but I wonder if the Cherokee Nation would, because they were Native American, right? So they were very much people of the land. And people of the land or Native Americans have different beliefs from Europeans and Americans and Westerners. So it is slightly different. They could have used horses for sure, but not everyone would have been able to afford horses either, right? It's an expense and it's a luxury that not everybody can have. So there were people who, or perhaps they had to put stuff on the horses. They had to pack up the horses with all the things they had to carry. And so they decided they needed to walk the rest of the way, right? So it was definitely a long and arduous journey for them. Imagine walking on hot sand. Exactly. Yeah, for sure. So this is the last 10 minutes of the class, and this is my question period for you guys. So I'll address any questions you have regarding the vocabulary, the passage, anything at all, or any comments you want to make. Now is like open, free discussion time. So let's go for it. I see some people typing in the chat, so let me take a peek. I can barely walk or run 1 mile. I don't want to imagine what kind of terrain they had to walk through for 900 miles. I don't want to imagine that either. Like, it just sounds terrible and so mean, but this is the reality of it, right? Like, this is the reality of colonization, and the Europeans did a lot of colonizing in their time. Actually, since we have a couple of minutes, if nobody, do you have questions? Yeah. Somebody.
I have I kind of wondered why the Americans like has to go with Cherokees. They could go somewhere else. Why are they
Okay.
like forced to leave?
Why force them out of their land?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Well, that's
wanted the land, but like they could go somewhere else, not just the Cherokees.
of course, but that's not the only place they went. So it started with the Europeans who have a really big history of colonization, and
Okay.
that's what it is, right? So colonization is picking an area of land where you're like, I like this land, I want it for whatever reason. So if we go back to the beginning of the story, oh my goodness, why is it? Sorry, I didn't mean to zoom in on it. They had started making contact with them and settling along the coast in the early 1600s. And most likely in this time, they were traders, right? So they were communicating like, oh, I have beaver skins and I have herds. Let's trade these things, to help each other out, kind of thing. But once the Europeans realized, hey, there's so much stuff on this land, they were like, I want this land, right? And so the story that I wanted to share with you, I don't know if you've heard of it in school or not, is the story of the colonization, in a sense, of Canada, which started with European settlers as well. So the French and the English, first the French, then the English, arrived on Canadian soil and were like, wow, look at all these Native Americans and all of the amazing things that they have. And they started same way, trading. Oh, we'll trade you this for that. We'll trade you this for that. And then it became, I want this land and I want the space and I want, the beavers that you have here and I want the soil that you have here and I want the water that you have here. And because they had the army and they had the capacity and the manpower to do it, they essentially invade the country and take it over. So yeah, as people are saying in the chat, it is very sad. Not everyone is nice. And they didn't really care much. And a lot of them also saw Native Americans as being backwards or uncivilized. Because, I mean, has anybody here watched Pocahontas, the Disney movie? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first one was better than the second one.
Yeah, it's very similar because the idea is that the Europeans saw them as being uncivilized because of their connection to the land, right? Because of the fact that they were very simple people. For them, it's not about having big buildings and internet and computers and all these kinds of things. It's about being connected to what is there, being farmers, being hunters, but even being hunters, they would pray and stuff before hunting animals because they wanted to ensure that the animal was respected and that they were being grateful for what the animal was providing them, right? Providing them with food or shelter or clothing. And the Europeans, unfortunately, saw that as being uncivilized. And so they wanted to kind of bring them up to their level. Jasmine?
Also, in the movie, at the end, or when they were about to have a battle, they're singing like how the other people were like bad, and then they said the First Nations were savages.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think some people are saying in the chat as well, the uncivilized here are the meanies, of course, yes. Like you can view the Europeans as uncivilized just as much because they didn't take into consideration how much damage they were doing to the people that they were, invading and enforcing their rules upon. So definitely. Yes, exactly, definitely. So any other questions, comments? No.
I don't have TV.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had a wonderful class and I hope you learned something and had lots of fun. For my, somebody has a comment. People who don't care about others will be. Yeah, so definitely keep that message in mind. It's important to think about how your actions affect other people. And as a government and as a society, for sure, sometimes things are done for the benefit of the whole country, even though it hurts another country, which is unfair. And I'm really, really glad to see that a lot of you guys agree with me on that, and that you think, you know, it's important to work together and to be nice to each other for the most part and be respectful. People who don't care will get revenge. Well, be careful with revenge, Young, because revenge can consume you and make you just as bad as the people that you're trying to get revenge on. So we've got to be careful with that. So yes, that is pretty much it for today. I hope I see you guys all again soon. I have given the resource here. So we did use the Worldly Wise textbook for this presentation and for this class. If you would like to, I don't know if you have the book or if you want to have the book for your own purposes, you're more than welcome to. Oh, I see Jasmine has it, so great. And if you do have it and you want to answer the other questions that I didn't include in the presentation because we only had an hour today and I wanted to make sure that we fit everything, by all means, you can go through it. And hopefully if we see each other again, I can give you answers and things for the stuff that you don't have answers for. So it is a long weekend. It's an Easter weekend. So have a really, really awesome long weekend. And I hope to see you guys all soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Have a nice long weekend.
So lovely meeting everybody.
Bye. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.